First off, I want to thank all of our panelists that drove all the way over here. We really appreciate this right away, so we want to get that kind of up front, and we really appreciate your time. Today we kind of want to discuss what our project proposal was. And this one might be a little bit easier because we're kind of doing it right now as the adults. But we're thinking we want to replicate this. We really want to recreate this model within the high school setting. And why is that? Well, today Darcy really kind of stole some of my definition thunder of what leadership really is, and she can do it something much better than I can. But certainly what some of the students are going through now is really more leadership development. And really what we want to continue on doing is youth leadership and how we can keep creating within the high school setting. So I went back and looked at a couple of reasons why this process is kind of flourishing throughout the United States, and even in the Wisconsin area. Green Bay area, Superior area is developing these programs. And a couple of things that I found was some survey data that Gallup had come up with. So in 2009, Gallup did a poll where they basically were polling high school students, not high school students, school-based students, 5 through 12, and they were attempting to measure 3 variables, and which of these variables was the biggest predictor of economic success for the students. The 3 variables were hope for the future, engagement with school, and well-being. The predominant one that came through from the high school setting down to the 5th grade setting was hope. Wasn't economic success, wasn't economic well-being, it was hope. They continued on with this theme, Gallup continued on with this theme in 2011. They partnered up with the Operation Hope Group, and they did another survey to kind of talk about young people's attitudes towards entrepreneurship, towards financial literacy. And the things that kind of came out from this 2011 poll was most of the children from 5 through 12, I should say children, 5 through 12, the kids, had these aspirations for entrepreneurship, but really didn't have the means to continue it on. So, and one thing that came out was that 7% of the 5 through 12s actually had bank accounts, and even lesser amount actually had a job throughout the school year. So we're seeing what we saw in the survey results was that they had the aspirations for it, but we just didn't have the means to do it. And so this is one way that we're feeling that we can certainly help develop some of these leadership qualities. So we gave everyone a project proposal in front of you. This is version 2.0, which I think it's been through more iterations than that, but suffice to say it's 2.0 right now. The idea is this would be replicated within the junior and sophomore setting. Okay, it would run from November until April, once a month. We're still ironing out the details, whether it's during the day, after school, weekends, and those are some details that we're going to ask you to kind of talk about in some of the breakout sessions. And then there would be a modest fee to go towards anything that we need to pay for, any expenses we need to pay for the day. So I'm not going to rehash certainly the proposal itself. You can read it on your own, but this has been a successful program throughout the country and other parts of the country, and so the idea is to recreate it in the greater Madison area. So public, private, and even homeschool children. And with that, I'm going to pass it all off to Deborah so she can kind of explain why we've invited everyone here today.
So there's going to be 3 steps to our program this afternoon, and each one is designed to serve a different purpose. The first is what we have about to start here now, which is our panel discussion. The purpose of the panel is to obtain firsthand feedback from various stakeholders in what we hope to become the LGM Youth Program. We've got representatives from the business community, from the school district, MSCR, and the students themselves that, well, not these students, but their peers in the future will hopefully be part of the program. So the panel discussion will be designed to get some high-level feedback about the idea, about what various stakeholders would like to see in the program, and about the need for civic-oriented leadership training for high school sophomores and juniors. After the first step, our panelists will stick around for a little bit while we do some group breakouts. That's why you are in the tables configured as they are now. The group breakouts will include the stakeholders, and each group will be asked to address how we sell the program, how we pitch the program to the various stakeholders. What does the business community want to see in a program like this? What benefit would it be to business people? What do students look for in a program like this, and how do we sell it to students? How might we get parents involved? How do we sell it to the school district? What does the school district want to see? So that's the focus of the second step of this afternoon session, the group breakout step. After that, panelists will be free to go off the hook for the rest of the afternoon, and the rest of us will stick around for a World Cafe. We'll move into the cafeteria here in this building for a World Cafe. Again, it will be a small group setting, and each group will be targeted at drilling down on a particular aspect of the program. The orientation, what kind of an opening session is there going to be? Is it a big ceremony? Is it a retreat? What would really be the most beneficial for all the stakeholders? What is the curriculum for the program going to be? What will the graduation be like? So each group will be focusing on a different aspect of the program. So that's the sort of outline for this afternoon. I guess we'll get started now and move into the panel discussion. I'll start by introducing our esteemed panel. I'll just move right down on the line. First we have Samuel Park. Samuel is a student at Madison West High School. He is co-community service officer for DECA. He's a peer tutor. He's a member of the National Honor Society, and he's also a member of the Wisconsin Youth Symphony Orchestra. On the weekends, he volunteers as a violin teacher at Centro Hispano for the nonprofit organization Music Makers, which provides free music lessons for children of low-income families. And he also volunteers in the art studio at the Madison Children's Museum. Next, Olivia Montgomery. Olivia is, she's an all-star. Olivia is a senior at Madison West. She's involved in the theater department, the math team, National Honor Society. She's secretary of the NHS chapter at Madison West. Outside of school, she enjoys playing the piano and volunteering with Wisconsin Public Television and a Grace Hospice Care. And when she graduates, she hopes to attend school on the East Coast and pursue a degree in engineering. We also have Christina Fox, who's here from Madison East, where she is a junior and was hand-selected by the assistant principal for her 11th grade class to be here today. Finally, we have Monica Ford, who's a senior at Memorial High School. She is a member of the Student Voice Group, which we all are familiar with. That was the group that we met when we toured Memorial in May. She's also attended Badger Girls State. She's been a team captain. She's on the tennis and soccer teams, and she's very active in the student government. Moving on, we have Julie Kanke. She's the director of the AVID program for Madison Metropolitan School District. AVID stands for Advancement Via Individual Determination. It's a multi-year program that includes curriculum that's designed to improve study skills, grades, time management, reading and writing skills, and basic college preparatory guidance. Next, we have Diana Miller, who's the supervisor of middle and high school programs for Madison School and Community Recreation. MSCR offers after-school programs at all 12 middle schools and 4 high schools in the Madison School District. This year, they've served nearly 4,000 students in middle school programs and more than 2,000 at the high school level. And last but not least, we have Jim Morgan, who is the Vice President of Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce, the state's largest business association, and is also the president of the WMC Foundation. Mr. Morgan is responsible for educational programming related to economics education, business education, workforce development, safety programs, and corporate best practices. So we've got a great panel, and Laura will start things off by facilitating.
Our LGM 20 group, and I think they're going to be just as curious about the questions and the results today. And we did provide the panelists with a list of questions prior to today, and hopefully they had a chance to digest some of them and think about them. But as we've done with other panel discussions in our group, please feel free at any time, guys, to throw out any questions that you might have for the LGM group here that's doing the LGM Youth Program, or for any of the panelists to dig deeper into what we're looking for. So again, our purpose here is to get information out of these key stakeholders about the Leadership Greater Madison Youth Program. Is it going to be a program that can be successful? Can we mimic it like we did the LGM program? And how can it benefit everybody in our community? So to start off with, I have a two-part question, so we'll just do the first part first. What has been the most important lesson in your development as a leader? So kind of a personal question for each of you. And is anybody willing to start, or we'll just start at one end? Jim, I see
I'm
you
doomed
going.
either way then, is that what
Yeah.
you're saying? That's fair enough. I think we run some similar programs more around business and entrepreneurship, but I think both in those programs and personally, the connection to a mentor or a couple of mentors that stay with people for a more extended period of time, that they've got somebody to go to after the program ends or after the day ends. Those seem to be the relationships that we've seen long-term as you're trying to develop this leadership, that they've got somebody to go to. So whether or not in this youth program everybody matches up with a mentor or whatever it may be, I'd say if they've got that constant contact, that's very helpful as they continue to develop whatever it is they're trying to do.
Down the line, Diana?
I would agree with that, and just choosing the right mentor. And so sometimes the person who you might match somebody with isn't necessarily a good personality match, and so having the ability to choose your own mentor and have somebody who can you feel comfortable with is going to be, I feel, a lot more powerful.
I guess when I think back on my own development as a leader, I go back to my college experience, which I was involved in a lot of student government, student-run organizations, and so I think that opportunity to do the work, learn about it, and be in a really safe situation where you can really horribly flail and know you're not at high stakes. That for me was really helpful in learning how to run meetings with my peers, how to take personal risks, how to have difficult conversations where you know you had that support of that mentor and yet you were also engaged in doing the work, whatever that was.
So moving on to our students, Monica?
When it comes to being like a student leader, for me, especially in student government, I think the two biggest things that I think really helped me is first of all caring, and I think students sometimes have difficulty with that, but really caring about what you're doing and knowing that it's for a certain purpose and going from there and figuring out what you're going to do from there. Just having that initial like want to do something is the biggest thing in developing, especially a student leader. And also just knowing who you're trying to lead, because leading freshmen in high school is way different than leading, professionals in the real world. And so just knowing like where they are in their life, I mean, it can be different. It might
There's
be
a
the
couple
same.
Snickers there.
Looks like more like third graders.
It could be the same, but yeah, just I think that really helped me is knowing who you're talking to and knowing what something means to them versus what something means to someone else.
I would agree with that. I was involved in like a lot of after-school activities, and I had to like lead people, and I had to care and have a purpose for them and be their voice for them.
It's a good lesson.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of already touched on, but just learning how to work with everyone. I mean, even in high school and just as I started working, I just started to understand the difference in working styles that everybody has, and it's not really something that you have to deal with just in school or just in completing individual work, but just the importance of learning how to merge working styles, or just whether it's learning how to compromise or even just communication, I think is one of the most important things.
Important skills we need to have in high school or even as adults in the workplace. Communication and understanding different leadership styles is very important.
Kind of aside from that, knowing when you become a leader, you have to not be afraid to put yourself out there and find other connections and be very humble and ask for help from other people. So like within like these programs, you have to be able to not be afraid to go into public and like kind of spread the word either, or try to get attention from people or help from others, which is an important part of being a leader.
Awesome. So part 2 of that question then is, how do we incorporate these lessons that you guys have learned, that you have shared, into a leadership Greater Madison Youth Program, where again it's focused more on civic leadership? Any thoughts there, how we can incorporate these great lessons? Maybe into the program curriculum itself, as we heard?
Well, I think like complete submersion, like understanding who the people, I think someone touched on it before, understanding who you're trying to lead and what your cause is for by going out into the community and interacting within that small sector that you're trying to help, or within the field that you want to promote or advocate for. You have to go outside, and that's like where I brought up before. You can't be afraid to talk to other people, complete strangers maybe, that might be intimidating, but you have to be brave enough to go out and face things by yourself, be independent.
And maybe, as Julie said, you have to be brave and go out there and put yourself out there, but if you can do it within a safe environment, an environment maybe the program that has structure, that does have some boundaries, that maybe you feel safer at the same time. Yeah, great response.
I mean, it's more simply just doing it, right? I mean, I don't think as a high schooler I really would have had these experiences had I not sought them out. I think a lot of students don't really get the opportunity to learn things like communication skills or how to work with people that aren't like you, because it's just not something that's absolutely necessary. So I think even just providing students a platform on which to practice these things would be extremely valuable.
Great point. Awesome. Any feedback from the adults on how can we incorporate these good learning lessons into our youth leadership program?
I feel like the students can take over the panel and we much more accomplished group over
One of the things that we do at MSCR is we have a junior leader program where we teach people who are high schoolers who are interested in working with youth about diversity, and it's really a very it's an interesting thing because they attend diverse high schools, and so it's what I might assume to be diversity is not how they perceive diversity. And one of the things that we build into our curriculum of training is a project with UW Extension around true colors, and so it gives people their own learning styles and their communication styles, and it also then informs them about the other ones that are out there. And since it's only 4 colors, it's pretty easy to remember, but it gives them a platform to start to see people who are different from them and the way that they communicate, and give them some tools to be able to communicate successfully with somebody who is different than them.
Oh, great, good idea. So the colors, what are they colors for what people personality styles?
Yes.
Is that what it's based on? Okay.
We've got, ours is usually an adult mentor for about every 10 kids, but then our program is one that you can come back to up to 3 times. And so as the kids move through the program, the 3rd year kids can then sort of serve as mentors to the 1st and 2nd year kids, because they've been through some of the programming and utilize them that from an experienced 17-year-old's point of view, this is what happened as we went through the program versus, some 50-year-old trying to tell them what's going on.
Good point. Okay.
I think some of the programs that we've done well in our district is where there's and a student voice might be one, so Monica might be able to speak to this, but I think where there's an opportunity for students to learn a skill, practice it, and it's practiced in a real live experience. So go get some feedback from your peers about X, Y, and Z, and then figure out how to present that to adults about what your students think. So really, where it's grounded not in practice or something fake, but it feels like you're doing real work, but you're doing it again in that safe environment.
Monica, did you want to share a little bit about the voice program?
Yeah, Student Voice, we meet weekly and there's an application process to get in, but it's all 4 grade levels. And we meet every Friday morning, and it's just kind of like sit around the table, and there's administration there. Usually our head principal is there, Mr. Dahman, and also a couple vice principals. Come and sit, and sometimes it's more direct, like, hey, we're introducing a new cell phone policy, here it is, like, let us know what you think, and then we give them feedback. otherwise, it's kind of like just kind of open-ended, like, oh, we're sitting here Friday morning, anyone want to say anything? Like, oh, well, I think the school lunch sucks. We get that a lot. But, yeah. Or some people complain about the bathrooms a lot. But there's serious things that happen as well. And I think basically what they want from us is to talk to administration, and we tell them our thoughts and they tell us theirs, which is really great to hear firsthand from administration. We're not hearing from other students, we're not hearing from the teachers who have their own opinion. We're hearing straight from, you know, our head principal saying, this is what I want to do, like, how do you think it'll work? And it's really nice. And then from there, basically, is before we meet, we go and talk just to other students in class or in the hallways and just see what they're thinking before we go to our meeting as well. And so I think having that really helps, just knowing that you get to hear from them and then we talk to everyone else. So it's kind of, it goes down the chain and goes back up, and that just happens every week, and it's really nice. And I think for this, just having themes, like that theme throughout the whole entire program, not having a specific time where we're gonna work on this, just have everything always working on everything, kind of like there can be specific times where you, like, let's talk about community service, but I think overall leadership skills should just be worked on throughout the whole program, and like developing those throughout and doing different things to like cap on other parts that we haven't done.
Yeah. So it sounds like Student Voice is a great program for listening, giving feedback, but it sounds like based on the panel, we're looking for in the Youth Leadership Greater Madison program is something that provides mentorship, something that teaches kids as well as adults about diversity, something that includes a training component, maybe something that includes a component about personality assessment, understanding different personality styles or working styles. So knowing again that our progress, our goal here is to get to a youth leadership program that can help these individuals build civic awareness. From a stakeholder perspective, you know, can you give us a thought or two on why you think a civic leadership program would be an important thing for us to continue to roll up, to continue to work on and make it part of our Madison community?
I can speak maybe a little bit from a school district perspective. What I'm aware of in our community is that the county system has an opportunity for youth to sit on certain boards and to provide that insight. When we have a student senate within our district, there aren't a lot of opportunities for kids from across the city to come together and learn about community and civic issues outside of their individual school or community. So this really sets a different type of opportunity for kids to learn from one another, not just within their schools or within their local neighborhoods, but across the city, and the diversity that's there, as well as that civic engagement mindset. A lot of what happens in a school from day to day is around content. The drive towards Common Core standards is really about content knowledge and skill development, pretty much related to academic skills. So where does that other education around citizenship, voting, you know, how you conduct yourself, not just as an academic person, but how do you conduct yourself as a citizen of our community, I think is something we have lacking in Madison.
Awesome. Just from the student perspective, is there anything that you see currently in the high schools that addresses what Julie was just talking about?
We can talk about, she mentioned Student Senate. I'm on Student Senate. Should I explain what that is?
Yeah, go ahead.
Student Senate is basically like a group. It's kind of like student council that's district-wide. So a bunch of high schoolers come together and meet with 1 or 2 school board members every other week. And we discuss things like the code of conduct or like different policies. And we talked about the Common Core a lot. And it's just kind of a way to get our voices out there. But it's not common, or it's like, I don't think most students have heard about it or attended, or even if they did, I'm not sure why. I don't think the students realize that, or why this is important, or the benefit that this could have. So I think definitely there's an education component missing, and that's something that this program could provide.
And that's a good point. That's something we talked about is in a small group as well, is communication. How do we get the awareness out there? How do we get the schools, to buy in, the business owners to buy in, the students to be educated or get informed that this program exists? Just like earlier today, not many of us knew about the youth apprenticeship program. How do we get the Leadership Greater Madison Youth Program out there too from an education and communications standpoint? So thank you for sharing that with you. Anything else from the other stakeholders? Maybe Jim from go ahead, Monica.
I was just gonna add that, so you said earlier that I went to Badger Girls State this past summer, which is, there's also Badger Boys State, and that's just kind of where it's a week program, and we meet with like 700 other girls from the state that are picked from their high schools, and it's kind of a mock government. And it was just like incredible that whole week we just had a mock government, like learning about, city, county, and statewide things like that. And obviously this isn't about government, this is more about just leadership in general. And so just that 1 week program in the summer really, I could tell from the other girls that were there, really opened us all up to like how our government actually works, and it really broke it down for us. And also just meeting the other girls there, we could bounce ideas off of each other. And so I think taking that and putting it into this LGM idea, I think just getting students from different backgrounds together already does so much that I think that's just on its own really beneficial. And then having them work together on a problem and try and solve it, things like that, I think that is just what's going to be really important for the community, is to have students working together from all different areas, so they can just help our city in general.
I think that's an excellent point, with the Badger Girls program, opening your eyes up to government and what it's all about. Hopefully Leadership Greater Madison Youth could also do the same thing, opening eyes for adults as well as the students to, what are our community needs, what are issues that are in our own community, our own backyard, that maybe are going unaddressed, that we can help with, that we can partake in making a difference.
Laura, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I think Olivia made a great point earlier about the fact that unless you go seeking these opportunities, a lot of the students aren't aware. So I'm interested from the students' perspective, what are the barriers? Because obviously you all are the exception. I think you've got great accomplishments. The list is long. So how do you break down that barrier so other students are aware of these opportunities, including LGM? And how do you present that so that it's available to the whole student body? What are those barriers?
That's a great question. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, okay. Okay, one problem, I'm not sure this is the widespread issue, but awareness and just, like as a senior, especially right now in high school, I just get so much stuff thrown at me on a daily basis that trying to like sort through. So in some way, it's just that there's so many opportunities that we don't know what's worthwhile or what would have a benefit or what would be useful or interesting.
And so where do you get your best information from then? Counselors? Or other students?
Yeah, I mean that's something maybe these other guys can speak to. But I did want to say that's one of the, I think one important component of this program would be a strong teacher recommendation program, because I think a lot of teachers get to know their students really well, and that's one way that you could make sure that promising and qualified students are being identified, because they won't always seek out these opportunities, but there are a lot of students that are fit for this program that would be interested and a good match for the program that wouldn't otherwise identify it.
I think that's a good point. There's a lot of things that come your way in high school, and deciphering what's important, what would be a good opportunity, what would fit with me. Maybe you need some additional help to identify that. Teacher recommendation is a great idea. Counselors, are your counselors pretty available for you in high school as well? Do they help you guide you through some programs, extracurricular?
Well, I feel like each school is different and like each counselor is different. Like many times, like I get a lot of information from my counselor, but a lot of kids have like different relationships. There's different dynamics within relationships with like counselors. So sometimes that can help, but I feel that honestly maybe like social media or things like that are a great way of accessing like the interests of younger kids today.
Any certain social media?
Oh,
Facebook. How about Twitter? Guys, you Twitter a lot?
I don't like Twitter.
Still Facebook. All right. Good to know.
We use Mark.
Yeah.
what do you guys consider, I mean, we work leadership Greater Madison, so we come from all different companies, all different areas of the county, and think of probably community in a different way than you guys think of community. I mean, what is your community? Is it school? Is it family? And what, when you think of community, what's sort of your geographic definition of that? Not helping you.
I don't think community is more of a geographic thing, but more of a social context.
Okay.
Your community, I feel that people have different communities. Like I might have my musical community, my neighborhood community. I also have my school community, and I have my community within the place that I work. Like I have my job or like where I volunteer at. I feel those are all different communities that are like bound together within one Greater Madison area.
I mean, I know, especially West, we have a really strong school community. But I think there's a potential for more of a geographic community almost. I see in my neighborhood. I just don't think it exists. But I think that this is something the program could bring out, is a greater sense of geographical community within the neighborhoods or just within the local government. I think it exists. It just is not something that is expressed or recognized by students.
For me, like the majority of the things I do are school related. You know, student government, student voice. Pretty much like everything I do has to do with the school. I do like volunteer outside into like just more the general community. But like I think it's like person to person. It really depends on who you are. For me, I would claim my community as more of like my school community. And not saying I'm exclusive to that, but that's just my general, like that's the majority of the things I'm involved in are in my school. So I would label my main community as my school community. Whereas I think this LGM youth, like the participants in this eventual group would be coming from everywhere. You know, there would be a lot of kids who are, oh, I got here because of my school, so I'm in the school community. There could be someone from a church, more like church-like community, or just community service. So I think it doesn't matter about which community you're in, just as long as we pull them all together into this group so that everything's represented. And I think that would be, I think that's the best way to do it.
In terms of sort of breaking through that, we've ended up getting a coordinator in every high school in the state to try to recruit for our program. And if you can get that one internal zealot in the school who you can send materials to, who you know will hand it out, who will know go do things. And we ended up getting more of that commitment by involving those teachers in our program. In fact, we put together a whole separate program for the educators. And then if they had been to our program, they were much more likely to sell it and to feel like they were a part of it and to try to make sure that kids went to it. So if one of your recruitment strategies is to get into the schools and try to get them, I would find that one adult in that building that's going to, you know, grab every kid in the hallway and say, this is the greatest thing ever. You should really go to this. And somebody who really understands it and can talk somewhat passionately about why it's a good program.
Julie, any thoughts on that? Heading to Jim?
Yeah, certainly, and I think Diana probably could speak to the same thing in terms of MSCR. I think the key is to know who the adult is you're communicating with, that they thoroughly understand what your outcomes, what your target population is, and what you're trying to accomplish, and therefore they can think about students, recruit students in a much more specific way, so that you really do get that participation. I think if it's a blanket email out to counselors, the chance of that getting directly to students probably wouldn't happen very well. That'd be fair to say. And it's just about prioritization at a school level, and it's about them really fully understanding it's one more thing of, so it doesn't become one more thing on somebody's list of things to do, that is really seen as a priority.
That's a good segue into this question. You already said what are some opportunities of how we can make sure we get connected with the students. Are there any other challenges that we could face in trying to implement a Leadership Greater Madison Youth Program, either in developing it or implementing it? What challenges or hurdles might we have to overcome? Getting to the right contact person in the organization or the school is important.
I think, for you as an organization to address what that outcome is and what fits better as a school day program or a weekend program is going to drive where your challenges and hurdles will be. There are pros and cons to both of those. And so if it's embedded within the school day, you would run up into issues of, there's probably a lot of students like these students who we heard are more accomplished than probably most of us in this room, who then have a very busy schedule. And so then they're competing between leaving class and all of that occurring for them, of high-level homework that's occurring while they're not in that class, and the pressure they face to be out of school for the day, issues around transportation and all of those types of things. That might be different, but a weekend program, you might also be competing with other extracurriculars. So a variety of pieces, I think, for you really to consider what's our outcome and what are we trying to do and how do we best meet our outcome, and then figuring out that venue. So.
Okay. And that was a great segue response, Julie, because that was one of our questions too for the whole panel was, is there any thoughts on a weekday versus evening versus weekend program if we were to implement this? Students, any thoughts on that? What might work best?
Coming from Student Voice, we meet every Friday morning, and last year we actually went through, we have a bit, our major difficulty in this organization was getting people there and getting students there, especially when you're meeting at 7:30 and there's certain kids who only take the bus to school and that's their only way of getting to school and back. So that's always been a difficult thing. So we started doing something last year where we'd meet just during 1 hour of school, and obviously this would be more, it would be like whole day. And we've gone back to the morning. And so I just think that's always going to be an issue of not having, oh, well, if we have it in the morning, some people can't make it to this, but if we have it during this hour, some kids can't go because they don't go to school. So I think either way, it's going to be taking away something from these students, but it's also going to be giving them something. So maybe just alternating could work as well. I don't know. I think either way, there's going to be some struggles.
So from your perspective, it sounds like you're saying that if the individual who's participating in the program is committed, that hopefully they'll find a way to be there whatever time it might be, and maybe to alternate it up a little bit to give options. Okay. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, this is a little bit weird actually, but I was, I think doing it during the day would be most beneficial. The first reason is just that I think, honestly, for me, getting out of school or missing school is more flexible than things on the weekends because, things on the weekends, everyone's like, well, it's a commitment on the weekend. What else do you possibly have to do on a Saturday? And, whereas getting out of school, you're always in school, but you can make it up. And then the other
nothing.
And the second part of that is, I think one of your biggest challenges is going to be raising awareness and getting even the students that aren't directly in the program involved in the program. And I think taking kids out of school is one weird way to do that because people are going to be like, where were you today? You're going to be like, well, I was at this thing, such and such and such. And this is also going to tell teachers. Teachers are going to become more involved. They are talking to students about this. And just again, other students are going to be hearing about this. Whereas if it's on the weekend, Sam does all sorts of stuff on the weekend I don't know about, right? So it's just a communication thing and awareness.
It's not that weird. That's why we do it, to get out of work.
So can I ask a kind of a follow-up question on that? So what do you think is the tipping point for saying, if you were needing to convince, for example, a teacher that it was worth the time to go through the, having to provide the extra homework or whatever to work with you on that missing school, do you think would be the tipping point that would make that experience for the class with the teacher or others maybe beyond that individual student of value?
Well, I think that's what the point of this program is, in this whole panel, to create a program that is valuable and worth your while. And I feel that teachers, for me, I think that especially in public schools, the point of a public education is to teach students the valuable lessons of going into the community and teaching the society of the skills that you've learned. And I think teachers should understand that by doing this, program, you are simply gaining another kind kind of window into a view of the world that you wouldn't gain from school.
Just really quick, as anecdotal support, I am confident that all of my teachers would find this pretty it's unique, right? And I'm sure all my teachers would be in support of this. And, if it was like, I have to miss 1 day a month, can you give me the homework? They'd be like, absolutely. So I don't think that would be your
And why do you think they'll support it? Why do you think it's of value to them? What would they say?
I just think they would probably recognize that this is a unique opportunity that teaches things that we're not being taught in class.
And they're also public workers. I mean, they're part of the community as well. Like what affects us will affect them.
Good points.
I think also just having it once a month, like if it was, every week you're missing a day of school, then it would be more understandable for a teacher. But I think just once a month for 6 months, most teachers don't really mind. I mean, it's just you being sick once a day every month. That's like, I have a kid in my class who missed 2 weeks for mono, so it's like,
No attendance goals.
And also the fact that there's an application process, I think that on its own just tells the teacher like, hey, they're good enough for this group. They can go. So
That's a great point. Jim, anything from your perspective on the mentorship program, taking kids out of school or?
We haven't had any trouble. I think it answers your question, and I think she just answered it too. When we do our one-day program during the school year, we'll take the whole junior class sometimes out in different schools, and I think the fact that when the kids come back from it, they're pretty excited about it, and wow, this was fun, and this was great, and I learned
It's back and forth. I think often when the district or schools aren't as receptive, it's that they don't really understand where students are going and what's happening and what's the added bonus for them. I think as soon as they do and they see the value, they hear students talking positively, they see it's something that they can't offer the students, then it's viewed as very much value added. So I think part of that's how you message it. And I would be curious, I don't know, I know Andrew and I had talked about this, I don't know what sort of piece around credit would be offered, and I think that might be an interesting piece if part-time elective credit could be offered for participation. So it's viewed as something that's part of their school experience.
And if that part doesn't work as far as the credit, can you tie it into at least curriculum? So
potentially, you're right.
Yeah,
Potentially, depending on what that curriculum might look like. Perhaps a component of LGM is that students have to give a presentation about their experience, and there's a connection for them to be able to communicate that back. I don't know what our students. That's a great adult idea. I don't know if that's a great. It's the chasm between
No, but I think connecting, like after going to that meeting, connecting back to your school and relating it to your school, I think that should be like a part of the group itself, not just, oh, we want to make sure your school is okay with this, but more like, hey, take this, because this, I feel like for me, having a youth leadership group throughout the district, I think the most important thing of that is taking everything that you learn from there and then bringing it to your school. And I think that's the great thing about having this diversity, so that they can, once we're no longer together but split up again, then you can do what you need to do just from what you've learned. And so I think just having them, like for me, if I were in this group, I would go back to student voice or my student government and say, hey, like go to all the things that I'm involved in and tell them kind of what I learned. So I think just majority of the students who will be in this will be already involved in something. And so they should just take whatever they're involved in and kind of move it into what they learned.
And in our next session, when we have the breakouts, maybe we do a little more deeper dive into that question or into how else we can incorporate it into the schools. Awesome. All right. How about parents? Should they be involved in this program in any way? And what role would they play if they did? Back to the students.
Personally, I don't think that they should be. Well, no, it's not because of that. When you do this program, it's student leadership. You have to motivate yourself to put yourself out there and to do the work and to make sacrifices. You have to give up time, which is expected of you. You can't have, you have other peers to support. You can't have your parent always there to help you if you need some extra, if you like need them to like, I don't know, like help you with signs or like, obviously they can help you, but your parent shouldn't be the one that's pushing you to do this. Because if they do that once you leave the household, then your experience is invalid. Then there's no point of you having done this if you need someone there always to push you to do it. You need to be self-motivated to really want to make a change in the role yourself.
Olivia, what do you think?
Okay, well, I think Sam kind of talked about this, but I think if you were to have a large role of parents in this program at least, then you would get parents recruiting their kids to do this program, which is not at all what you want, I think, because students that have their parents convince them to do this are not going to be the kind of students that are the right fit for the program, or the students that they're not going to get as much out of it. And the example given here is at least like after a monthly meeting, the student may be required to talk to their parent about the day. And I think if students going to be required to talk to someone, why would it be their parent, right? Why would it not be someone that's more relevant to like their classmates? I just think that could be organized better.
Good perspective. Christina, what do you think? Parents or no parents?
I think the parents shouldn't be involved because they covered it like what I was thinking, that you should motivate yourself and you should just, I don't know, I think they covered all of it.
Yeah. Is there a role that parent could play different than, what you were thinking? Is there any role for the parent?
Drive them to the meeting.
Pack lunch.
Yeah.
Should they have dinner ready for you when you get home? Oh, kind of love this generation. From the adults, any thoughts there? And the role of parents? I guess
So,
you could all.
I think I'm not going to go against what the students said, or that would be stupid. But I think a way to engage parents, so one, they know what their student is going to and why they're going to it and why they should be missing a day of school would be really important. And I also think giving parents an opportunity to learn what their student is doing, right? So if it's a end of year recognition or end of session celebration that perhaps parents might be invited to. I don't know if that's too much, but I think there is something nice from a more of an educational standpoint that students' lives don't exist totally separate from their parents, and we want parents to have a sense of what's happening, and I think that's part of what LGM would want parents to know too, and part of that public image. But how you can do that still honors the leadership development of students in the group.
I think there is something to that, making sure that the parents know or are aware of, again, what programs are available to the students, just because I think you do have a lot thrown at you from different directions, whether it's music or it's athletics, or if it's DECA, or other programs. That the school has so many things to offer, so how do you decipher, again, what's of value to you, what's of interest to you? And having two kids that are in high school currently, I do read the newsletter that comes out, every other month, and I do go on the website and read what's out there because my kids just don't have time to catch it all either. So I think there is that good point, just there is a parent awareness of it, so they can bring it up with their child, or they can get something that the child might be interested in. Anything else from Dan or Jim on that question?
I do think that there's a role for parents to play, especially if you're looking for students who maybe aren't, having been in something already. These students are obviously exceptional, and that according to who you're looking for, somebody who hasn't maybe had that opportunity or hasn't been able to know how to seek that out. And so there may be some needed parental support just around the knowledge or around logistical support of getting kids to where they need to be, or especially if you're getting sophomores who aren't having a license yet, and some of those logistical pieces. And I think that one of the things that will be really important for this is to build its reputation. So we heard Badger Grove State, people like, oh yeah, they know what that is. And so having people understand what a youth model of LGM is, and have the ability, that's another mouthpiece for you. And so, as a parent, I'm really proud of what my child does. And so if they're in something that I feel is prestigious, I'm going to talk to people about that. And so that's another, you're wanting your youth to talk and to their peers about it, but you're also wanting people who have other avenues. So they're not just parents, right? I mean, you might think they're just parents, but you know, parents have another role, and I'm assuming that people in this room, some people are parents, and so there are ways to network the parent group as well that can benefit the growth of LGM as a youth movement.
Yeah, I think having that parental support and having them be excited in what you're doing, just I think that for me helps me get more excited about what I'm doing and knowing that, you know, there's more people out there who care about what I'm doing and like I can feel, you know, like I'm actually accomplishing something. Obviously, I think what we were sort of getting at is they're not, hopefully the parents don't get too excited where it's like they make your science project for you. Like it's not going to be like at that extent where you're in kindergarten and they make the solar system for you. It's going to be like, oh, I guess you're taking over. But I mean, so I mean, it should be like a student thing, and they're in the background.
In the shadows.
Yeah.
Okay. We're in just a few more minutes. One question: what should happen after the student completes the program? Is there ongoing opportunity for engagement and involvement? Anybody have any thoughts there? Jim, from your mentorship program, you said it sounds like they're involved more than 1 year.
Yeah, I'd say don't let them go. That would be my advice. You know, whether or not that's a advanced program, or you bring them back as a mentor, or you bring them back somehow. You know, but I think ultimately that this program could lead to your program, and you know, you could have contact with these people for 20 years, for heaven's sakes, if that's the way it worked out.
Well, we have LGM 20, so we have 20 years of
There you go.
alumni, right, Lynn?
I would say one of the things we see from AVID and AVID tops in our district is even once students have graduated from high school, it's been a positive experience in their juniors or seniors. They want to stay connected. I think the same is true even with MSCR when students have had positive